Okay, recording.
So the question you asked me is what?
The question is, isn't there less that you could do than simply live off the grid entirely? Isn't there something a little less drastic?
So if we're looking at future conflicts in the world, if we're looking at potential demise of civilization due to resource conflicts, due to the continual degradation of the environment and the climate, etc., the atmosphere, what can we actually potentially do? Well, my short answer is that there probably isn't anything we can do to avoid it, but I think there are things we can do to mitigate it. I think there are things we can do to lessen the blow, to have less of a harsh crash. And here's some of my thoughts.
Well, I guess before you go, I was thinking more of an individual personal level.
Yes, I'm going to hit all personal.
Okay.
Because we don't really control the politics. I mean, we can argue about all that shit, but we don't control that. We don't control the rest of the world. What can you personally do? What can I personally do? Now, in my case, it is an extreme choice of I've decided to live off the grid in the middle of the woods and experiment and learn with totally different ways of living. And I hope that's useful in the future to somebody. I don't know that it will particularly save me, and I don't really know if I care. But that's my choice. And it's not a choice most people are in a position to make or really probably should bother making. In some sense, the rational, simple choice is eat, drink, and be merry and have a good time. You know, fuck it. We're all going to die anyway, probably. So, but let's get to something more positive in terms of pragmatic solutions for people in their lives. I would recommend saving food, like learning how to store food. Let's compare two different options in a society. There's always going to be a natural disaster. So whether you believe that society is going to hell or not doesn't matter. There's always going to be a hurricane, an earthquake, societal disruption, etc. So one of the things you could do is, or many people could do, is save enough food to survive 1 year.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not religious, but I respect anything good from any source. The Mormons do this. The Mormons save food for 1 year. That's what you're supposed to do if you're a good Mormon, yeah. And that means that if you're in a Mormon area and there's an earthquake that disrupts your society, they have enough resources to survive 1 year without completely falling apart.
Yeah.
It's a long time. So in a society where they don't do that, where there's an earthquake or a volcano or something and their food system is disrupted, that society that doesn't save food will fall the fuck apart.
Yeah.
They will suffer greatly. And the Mormons will suffer some, but they'll have enough extra time, resources, and survivability to then rebuild their systems. Not saying be Mormon, but I am saying if enough people in your society have food saved up, you won't have your society collapse when there's the usual problem that will always occur someday. So that's what number one is, store food.
Okay, store food, okay.
2, change how you eat. We eat terribly. We have an entire system, and this isn't just about survivability, I suppose, but we have a meat system, for example. The way we eat meat is horrible on many levels. First of all, if you do actually care about suffering and stuff, when you eat meat, you're causing animals to suffer horribly. Now, maybe you don't give a fuck about the animals. Many people don't. That's fine. But also that meat, and I'm talking about the industrial world. I'm not talking about where I live. Where I live, the meat's actually pretty good, except for the chickens. My chickens are fine, but the industrial system is here for chickens. Anyway, so the other problem, the human problem of how we eat meat, is that processed meat causes cancer, and you can look that up on Google. There was just some interesting things written about it from the World Health Organization. Processed meats are terrible for you. Also, a lot of the meat in the United States comes from places far away. The meat's old, and so you're going to have occasional problems in that system that poison people, you know, E. coli and stuff like that. So the most important thing we do day to day in terms of changing the world is what we eat.
Yeah.
Even if you look at a place like California, which is currently experiencing a fair amount of drought, a lot of that problem in water usage comes from what we decide to eat and how we decide to do agriculture. A lot of that's meat related. Not all of it. There's other issues there too. So, I mean, I'm not a vegetarian personally, and I really respect vegetarianism, and I think it's a great thing to think about ecologically. I promote vegetarianism in some sense. What I really promote, I guess, is a better way to raise meat, that we could both eat meat and not be damaging the environment, our health, and making animals suffer. But so there's a big number two, and there's a lot more details. There's what do we eat? So store food, what do we eat? How we use water, I briefly touched on there. If you're shitting in clean water and then flushing it away to some magic place that gets processed somewhere, you're wasting a lot of water.
Yeah.
Where I live, I'm just using composting toilets. I waste zero water by shitting in it. I've come up with something called the pea garden. With the pea garden and the composting toilet, we've got a solution for the world in terms of human body waste. And I'm writing that up better and trying to communicate it better, because the toilet actually wastes something like 40% of water in an industrial household. 40%. And people in California are confused about what they should do about a water shortage, and they haven't even thought. And California is supposedly a creative state, you know, with lots of smart people, but they're shitting in their water. They're idiots, you know. And unfortunately, we can't blame Californians because the rest of us are doing it too.
So I guess those are things that. Hold on a second. The issue is, why did you go to the next level, on a personal level, and live off the grid? What specific? Like, was there anything specifically that came into your mind and said, "Okay, I'm going to leave behind the grid"? Like, did you calculate in your head that it was going to happen in your lifetime, and you wanted to be absolutely 100% prepared?
Well, I'm not really like a survivalist type or anything. And I'm actually a very social person, so being a hermit wasn't my plan. I've been intermittently a hermit since 2004. I was made to do this. I was raised in a freakishly bizarre family. With a bizarre culture. I like a challenge. I see these problems after many decades of study, and so I think most people just couldn't do this, and I don't think they'd be as stubborn as I am. I think I have to do what I'm able to do. So it wasn't one event, and it wasn't even my plan. My plan wasn't to be this alone, certainly, but I think it's an interesting question. A lot of people see the problems in the world, right? We talk about them all the time. They're in the news. And I'm disturbed that more people don't do something about it. And I don't mean vote for someone, because that ain't going to do shit.
Yeah.
You know, but actually implement change in their life. And I certainly don't think that, I mean, I don't want to get on anyone's case or be judgmental about them living their lives. I'm in a child in the industrial world. I have wasted tons of resources in my life. And I hate echo assholes that want to go around pointing fingers at everyone saying, you have plastic bags or this or that. Like, well, fuck everybody. We're all guilty here. And so I don't want to be that kind of person. But at the same time, I want to live in congruence with my values and the future that I want to see for the world. And so I understand and accept that other people have their own challenges, you know, and they're trying to raise their kids, and they have to have their jobs, and they need to pay insurance, and they need to feel secure. That's great. But I don't have kids. I can be invincible. I can be the crazy guy who does what no one else is willing to do, you know?
You mentioned something briefly. Let me interrupt for a second. You mentioned something about your family that was bizarre. What are you talking about?
Well, I grew up as an extremist evangelical Christian.
Okay.
So I already grew up believing that the world was against me, and that, you know, Armageddon was coming, and the Antichrist was coming, and we'd be implanted with chips and so forth, which we're going to be implanted with chips, probably. It's probably true. but not having when I was around 12 or so, not having the ability to follow a made up God, and not being willing to sign on to the religion that happened to exist in the place I was born, which seemed like, intellectually stupid that I would just randomly choose the one I grew up in. So I did a major spiritual search about what makes sense in the world, and came up kind of empty after, studying every path I could think of, that I think that spiritual paths are generally authoritarian and evil, just as much as governments are. And they're implemented to control people and not necessarily for the health of the society at all. So that's the family I come from, is evangelical extremist Christians.
So, so at what point did you sort of leave the faith?
I was about 12 years old when that started, and it took years of thinking further, because I lost my family out of it. I lost my cosmology, and that's very painful. It isn't like I rejected God or rebelled against God. God does not exist, and it was painful to then lose my culture because of it, the culture I was raised in.
So, so do you think that is the basis for from a psychological standpoint, why you decided to go off the grid? Jay's here.
No, not at all. It's a part of it. It's a part of beginning to question the system, and it's only a small part, because long after I didn't have a faith, I still enjoyed the city greatly, and I still enjoyed all the pleasures of life, and I like to eat Thai food and so no, that wasn't it. As far as being off the grid, I think it's a matter of looking at the systems in place in civilization and saying, does this even make any sense? And also, I like living in nature. I really like living in a forest. Cities are full of cars and dirty things, and they're very chaotic, and you have to be paying people all the time for things you don't want. Essentially, it's very hard to live a free life as part of a city. And here, even though there's lots of downsides to it, not a lot of parties, but I live free here. I have.
Brian, Jay wants to say something. Jay, Brian is living off the grid in Mexico.
Okay, yeah, that's what. So I just wanted to. I'm sorry, I jumped in halfway through. I was just wondering, trying to be filled in, and where at in Mexico?
I am in the middle of Mexico, between Guadalajara and Mexico City. If you look up my name, you'll find me everywhere. There's a Facebook page for my place. It's called the Bosque Village. How are you off the
grid and online?
I'm sorry?
How are you off the grid and online?
I have solar panels and a satellite dish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that's go ahead, Jay.
Totally self-sustaining?
No. And it isn't really the goal to be totally self-sustaining. I get that question a lot, and it's a good question. Even tribes of indigenous people always traded with others. So although I certainly like to always be increasing my ability to self-sustain and my ability to produce things on my own, it's not the number one goal at all.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. How long have you been living off the grid?
Since 2004.
Since 2004. And was it by choice, obviously, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, if you don't mind me asking questions, but I was just curious. But do you have a life? Did you have a life before that, a career, and decided to just break away? Something that triggered it, or was it just I want to be out there?
Well, the idea had been there a long time. I actually took a map of the world and started marking places off that I didn't want to live. But since I was fairly young, I wanted to live in a place where I could take care of a forest. And forests and trees mean a lot to me. I have even though I'm anti-spiritual in some sense, I have what could be called a spiritual connection with the forest and the dirt, soil. So,
I on a
As
daily
far as,
basis?
I'm kind of skirting around things a little here because, there was a woman involved with my actual impetus to leave at the time I did. It was a motivating factor
That's
of
what I
getting
was
the
trying.
hell away from someone I was involved with. So,
Got it.
but
Okay, I
the
didn't
bigger
want to
picture was still there.
I didn't want to insinuate anything, but I wanted to know if there was any triggering factors, which
I would say if there was a triggering factor, it was probably a woman.
Now, were you going away from or towards?
Away.
Away.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going off the grid, Shelton, obviously, you're getting.
Well, you never know. Maybe she was a hippie. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, but you never know. That's true. So you don't spend any money, or do you?
I do spend money, more than I would like. If I don't do anything, if I'm just here, then I don't spend any money. But that's not true. I have my internet bill, which is my biggest bill, and I have to pay for my visa in Mexico each year. But my costs are very low. Now, if I have people here, my costs go way up. And there are a lot of people who are very delusional about this idea of going and moving off the grid and that everything will suddenly be free.
Right.
That is just not true.
That's, of course, yeah. That's what I was wondering. That's why I'm asking these questions to, so how do you make your money?
I don't currently. I've been losing money for the whole time. I do some things with the land, and I'm able to make a little bit that way. I should charge people when they come here, and I hesitate to do that because I'm a terrible businessman, And even though people have come here and had amazing times that they consider transformational, I have not wanted to charge them. My current plan, and this is something I think about every day, on how to not be a hermit, how to have people here and still survive, is to do crowdfunding. And so there's a site called Patreon where people pay each month to subscribe to a project. And my thought is that I will put it on Patreon, which I'm very shy to do. It's very hard for me. I come from a kind of background where you don't ask anybody for anything.
More pride.
Yeah. I'm very independent. But if I do that and I say, okay, I'm willing to have people here, if somebody's paying, they can pay or this crowdfunding thing, then all of a sudden we'll be broadcasting videos of their activities. We'll be continuing to work on designs that we release as open source and Creative Commons. And that would then be a benefit for the world, theoretically. And I would feel all of a sudden really comfortable because I wouldn't be in this sort of a fairly desperate situation of, not having enough money to support people. And socially, for me, it'd be lovely because I'm actually, even though I've been a hermit a long time, I like people.
Yeah. Okay.
If that's true anymore. It used to be true.
Is there any people living off the grid or where you're at?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm closing my ground. Is there any other people that are also living like you where you are?
Not that I know of. Almost everybody who does projects like this aren't doing it as purely as I am. I mean, really hardcore. I mean, and not having outside water is as hard as not having outside electricity. I mean, it's much harder actually, because I want to grow a lot of food, and without irrigation, that's tough.
I was gonna say, why don't you grow? You should grow marijuana. You'd be fine.
Well, partly because there's this other entity out there that would have a problem with that, known as the state. And if that wasn't the case, then I might do that. But until the laws change, I am not going to risk that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ryan, the question I have is, you go to such extremes to live off the grid, electrical when it comes to electricity, and yet you have the internet. What was the thinking?
Well, I'm not at all anti-technology. I like technology. In fact, I used to work in the computer industry. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll find out my sordid past. I like computers. I think it's computers are leading us to global consciousness. They're leading us to share ideas. Computers are wonderful.
Speaking of, so I'm gonna jump off my phone and jump.
Okay, thanks
great.
for dropping in.
I'll see you guys. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Briefly, that nerd Mike wants to know about ibogaine. I don't know what ibogaine is.
I don't know if that person wants to say what it is. I can comment.
Okay.
But
Okay. So anyway, so you were saying that you were saying about why is ibogaine? Ibogaine. Don't know.
Don't know. Post the link, man.
Don't. So it's a psychoactive. Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know that particular drug offhand. If there are legal drugs that are convenient and useful for people's learning, then I'm for them in the culture. If they're not, then I'm not. So
okay. So you were saying I missed the details of why it is that you go to extremes to live off the grid, right, and yet you have internet access. That seems exactly. So there seems to be a disconnect.
Let's look at that, because this is core to what I'm doing. Is I want to take and look at the oldest technologies, the oldest ways of doing things that there are, and see how we can use those. For example, if we were speaking right now around a campfire, and this is fine too, but there would be a primal connection that for tens of thousands of years, for hundreds of thousands of years, we connect over a campfire. This is primal core technology. If we go and we find medicinal plants that work for us and that we can eat or use as medicine or whatever, that's core primal good stuff. So I want to explore all of those old ways. How do we build with dirt, which we're doing? We're doing cob, which is like adobe. At the same time, I also want to explore the newest technologies, the best technologies for making us comfortable, secure, and healthy. So, LED lights, for example. I like LED lights. I like lights. I lived here for 2 years with no electricity or lights at all. That sucked. And so I'm very much in favor of having some light at night. In the same way, I'm very much in favor of having this fancy computer that has parts that came from tons of different countries. That is, I can't even conceive how complex this object is I'm using. So okay. I don't see those as in conflict. It's a matter of consciously choosing which technologies you use and which ones you reject and why.
Have you ever heard of the Gaia hypothesis?
I have.
What do you think of it?
It's cute. It sounds nice. I'm a pseudo hippie, I suppose. And whether we see the Earth as a specific living organism or not is sort of irrelevant. We could see the universe as a living organism. We also should realize that our own bodies are not just us, not even close. There are so many different genomes, different organisms living within us that we need, for example, in our guts to process our food. You could see yourself as a planet of just amazing complexity. So whether or not we want to anthropomorphize the entire planet or not, great, have fun, do it. Don't get weird about it, but yeah, seems true.
JS, to catch you up, Brian is a well-known a living off the grid person. I wouldn't call him a survivalist. He's just living off the grid. He's well-known apparently in his community, and he's telling us why he lives.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was with you, but yeah. Hi, Brian.
Welcome, so he's telling us why he lives off the grid and why it is that he uses the internet even though he lives off the grid. It's fascinating, and I'm having fun. He's having a beer.
A lot of people do, and they use various types of software, VPNs and things like that, to kind of protect their digital footprint, so to speak. But there are several people on here that actually are living off the grid.
Cool.
What's his name? He lives in a caravan. Friday afternoons he does stuff here. Oh, God. See, this is the problem. I've run up against the Dunbar number, which is where, you can keep track of 150 people. And at some point there will be either artificial brains or something that we'll be able to use that will help us. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably many, many, many reasons why people would want to live off the grid.
One nice thing is it's becoming easier, and even though it makes the state uncomfortable, the technology is getting there to do, at least off the electrical grid, much easier.
It's true. So you have solar power you can use. You can or you can go for your own thermo. What do you call it? See, I have to eat something here in a minute. When you dig down and you use the Earth's
geothermal energy.
Thank you, geothermal. So you'd use either of those. Depending on where you live, you could probably tap into freshwater wells and springs and things like that. You could certainly grow your own food. You could deal with fractional bitcoins or barter system. There's a lot of things that people can do to facilitate them not being on the grid. I mean, when you think about it, it's pretty funny because I think about people who live off the grid and how the government refers to them as liberals and things like that. But yet, isn't the true definition of a Republican somebody who doesn't want governmental interference?
I think all those definitions, left or right, or Republican or Democrat, are bullshit. They all are in favor of the power system that wants to control people.
Well, that's my point. That's my point exactly. Yeah. So if you really don't want, if you don't want the government interfering in your life, you don't go into politics and become a senator or a congressman, or or you don't become a Republican. You try as much as possible to reduce your overall footprint in terms of whatever you're leaving in the sand, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. There's many paths. I mean, I certainly respect a person who goes and joins the political realm to try and make a change.
Well, yeah,
that is not the path I'm going to take. But yeah, the thing we can do is take direct action ourselves. And I'm going to repeat this because some people feel threatened by the things I say because they feel like I'm judging them. I think we all have to pick and choose how we make that fight ourselves. We have to self-analyze. What are we doing? What is our impact in the world? And then look at our situation in terms of our families and communities, and then decide what are we going to do, and that's, any path is good if you're trying to be conscious.
So you said you tried not to predict the future as to when this is when the end is gonna come, but would you say it's going to be in our lifetime, or or you just, because it seems to me if it's not going to be in our lifetime, then you're preparing for an eventuality that you yourself will not experience.
I'm not that worried about me. I don't care if I die or live or whatever. I mean, we all die someday anyway. My interest, well, my prediction, I guess, is that we're going to see things get more messed up, and we might see some good stuff too. Now, that's a very safe prediction since that's what's always happened, right? Things have gotten better and things have gotten worse. But let's even look at an ideal case, for example. A lot of people care about energy, like we want to have energy. Okay. Well, one prediction would be that we will see energy costs continue to increase while population increases, while China wants to use more, and that we will see collapses in agricultural systems and a massive human die-off. Usually when a society collapses, you see about 90% of the population die. When you look at Angkor Wat, the Mayans,
there's a lot of effort right now to turn Africa back into, the Fertile Crescent. So there are a lot of people who are predicting in 15 to 20 years from now that about 65 to 75% of the Earth's food will be coming from Africa.
It's entirely possible. And Africa is a massive, I totally agree. Let's look at another more extreme case on the other end of things. Let's say we come up with magic fusion energy.
Well, it'll just get buried like
free energy else. From water, let's say. And so we have all the electrical energy we need. Okay, now we can keep growing the population. We can essentially produce as much food as we want. We can light everything up. We can manufacture anything we want. And the population could keep increasing. Right now, with the current state of technology, we're going to tap out around 11, 12 billion, I guess. But what if we could build it to 60 billion? Would that be great? Maybe.
So what was the greatest benefit of the military-industrial complex, and why does it no longer work?
I don't know, but let me finish this thought first, and then we'll get to that, if that's okay. So then we've got the heat problem. We're producing too much heat in the world, and we'll fry ourselves because we have all this free electricity. So it's not really a matter of the details on how soon. It's a matter of, can we even control ourselves? And I'm going to bring up something kind of weird. It's the Fermi paradox. Have you heard of that?
Well, why are there aliens?
Sorry?
What is it called?
The Fermi paradox.
Fermi. It's
Fermi.
Fermi paradox.
Yeah, from
It's
Enrico.
basically, why haven't we found intelligent life in the universe? One of my theories is that as soon as a civilization gets powerful enough to produce tons of energy, they end up killing themselves because they can't really control themselves. And I think about this as a person who's brewed a lot of beer. When you look at, when you're brewing beer, and I know this seems a little random, but hang with me for just a sec. And all these yeasts are in an energy-rich environment. It's a sugar water, essentially. It's going to be barley if it's beer. It could be mead. Mead is fermented honey. The yeasts will continue to populate. Here we go. They're reproducing like crazy, just like humans. Reproducing. They're going to use all those resources. It doesn't matter if the yeasts were smart enough to say, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should be sustainable. They're just going to keep doing it. And it doesn't matter what any hippie, environmentalist, conservative, liberal, or anyone else says. We are going to keep using all the energy we can. That is what we're going to do. Now, I say that with some pessimism in mind. Maybe we could get smart, but I'm not counting on it. Yeast population rises. Alcohol population, because yeast sugar, and they piss alcohol.
Yeah,
and then what happens, these graphs are online, and then it collapses. And they all die. Almost. It goes down to 1% of what it was or whatever. So that analogy is where we're at.
So Brian, Lee wants to know, how is your health? And where do you get your medication? If you
I
get
don't
sick.
take much medications. I have a couple of things I take, but my main health plan is don't get sick.
Yeah.
Luckily, here in Mexico,
even if you were on the grid, that's still the best plan.
Yeah. I don't have any health insurance. I have no savings. If I get injured, I will die.
Wow.
Well, that's sort of sad.
Not really.
So,
I think it's honest and good.
well, why do you think it's honest and good?
Because I think people live in a pablum society largely. I would prefer it be otherwise. I should have savings, but I spent them all doing this project. So partly, I guess I'm dumb. But again, I don't have kids, so who am I protecting? If I die, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to die anyway. Somebody has to be as crazy as I am. So yeah, I used to have more savings, and I did sprain my ankle.
But when you think about it,
back.
the average American is only like 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless anyway. And
I know.
look at the huge numbers of populations. We have more people over the age of 30 living in roommate situations now than we did during the Great Depression.
Yep. The United States is not a rich country. It has a lot of rich people.
Yeah.
And that's true in Mexico as well. I live in an extremely poor area.
Although
people here, when they get sick and they're old, they die.
Although, Brian, 2/3 of the homeless population in the United States on average lives better than 2/3 of the rest of the planet. So I suppose it's all how you look at it.
I do agree with that totally.
When you were talking about, the population before, we're in a very bad place because wars don't kill enough people anymore. That's what I was talking about, the military industrial complex. A lot of people think, well, war worked because it created jobs. People were making airplanes and things like that. No, war worked because it killed off tons and tons of young men who are not going to come home and have babies with their wives, who are not going to be consuming food and other resources and so on and so forth. So that's why war worked. And now, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, as you know, tongue in cheek, unfortunately, war just doesn't seem to kill many people anymore, so it's kind of useless.
Well, now they're put in jail in the United States.
Yeah, that's true. They are put in jail.
Yeah. And in Mexico, the young men who would otherwise...
he doesn't want
the
people
young
to
man
die.
leaves the country to go work.
He was being rhetorical.
Yeah, young men are the people who usually are the ones who fight the state and make change.
No, I don't want
which doesn't mean that they do it in an effective way. But what's that?
We were talking to Rewa. Rewa, we were trying to tell her that JS does not want people to die. He was being rhetorical.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah, we don't. You see, we don't have solutions in this country, or we should say in the world, because solutions are designed to solve problems for the masses usually, and the rich people, the uber wealthy, and the ones who are in power, they're not really concerned about solving problems for the masses. They want to solve problems for themselves, and that seems to be a big thing. So what happens is we now create a construct where it's in the best interests of the power mongers, if you will. And this isn't anything new, but it's in their best interests for us to not be able to even agree on what the problems are.
So
if you can't agree on what a problem is, then how are you supposed to be able to come up with a solution? And it's not victim thinking. It really isn't. When you look at somebody who's a good guy like Oprah Winfrey, and she invests she now owns 10% of Weight Watchers. Within 3 days, she made $380 million on that deal. So when you see somebody like that who can carry that much weight and influence and power in a very public forum, totally legally, doing something like that, you have to sort of stop and wonder.
So, what will be the signs that the end is not like in near term? Like, what is there any particular sign that you will see? Like you'll say, okay, all my preparation, I've been waiting for this, and now it's about to happen. Any signs?
Brian or me?
Brian.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's not one thing to measure, but there's a lot. And certainly the price of food matters. And also availability to water. As soon as the water system begins being disrupted in a society, you see immediate problems. And so this is of interest in California, for example. And every time I'm talking with somebody about water, I bring up California because that's a very fancy society with lots of wealth. It's one of the biggest economies in the world, even if it was its own country.
12th largest if it were a country unto its own.
Thank you, sir. And so the fact that they're having problems there because they can't make basic predictions about water use is not a good sign. So tracking water use, tracking food prices, again, it's hard to use prices, though, because they're so subsidized. We have massive corn subsidies in the United States. The United States itself is a totally artificial economy based on feeding in money from elsewhere. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think the signs are, the numbers are we should be watching?
Me? I suspect that there was a great deal of energy. Well, there was a great deal of energy developing, creating, and maintaining the artificial construct of the middle class in the United States during the 50s and 60s and part of the 70s. And it could have continued. It certainly should have continued for a lot of reasons, but it kind of hasn't. So when the middle class started doing better, the rich people were essentially rich, and corporations were taxed to support the development and growth and support of the middle class. As the middle class started to become okay and settled in, they started becoming taxed to support the poor. We still have that middle class supporting the poor, but we now have subsidies for the rich and corporations in this country, such as the Supreme Court actually indicating that a corporation has more rights than an individual in these United States. So I think at one point I thought we were going to maybe see racial tensions growing high enough in this country to create at least an issue or problem there. I don't see it now. I think it may actually become completely financially motivated.
So, Jay, what about you?
I would rather see actual conflicts among things that affect everybody rather than making it a race issue, because I think it affects everybody.
Yeah.
Jay-
So what I would say is keep an eye on, are you going to get to a point as a middle class individual where you go to the store and you think twice about buying meat because of the expense, or you can't. You're just looking at the cost of food as part of your daily expense. I mean, in San Francisco, it's gotten crazy. 1-bedroom apartments are $4,000 here, and food costs have gone up by 70% in the last 4 years.
Yeah, and where I live in a very interesting area because Mexico's not a poor country actually,
No.
but there overall it has a terrible differences economically. There are people who,
Propinas, that's
as the price of tortillas go up, can't afford tortillas as much, and this is because of corn subsidies in the United States. It's pretty harsh. It's the third poorest state in Mexico. And even though I know people who are doing okay, they're living below the poverty line.
Where are you in
for
Oaxaca?
Mexico.
You're in Oaxaca?
No, I'm in Michoacan.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it's still the third poorest state. Things change, but
Yeah.
It's harsh. It's been very educational for me because I come from a country, a place. I come from the Seattle area, and you can fucking eat out the garbage there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I suspect we still throw enough food away in the United States to feed in many small countries.
yeah. So, Jay, the one and only, what's your thoughts here?
Well, I kind of expressed my questions and stuff that I had to you when I first jumped in there. But so, I mean, like you said, you made that this is something that triggered. So there was something specifically that triggered you, even though this was always instilled in you. So now that you're now that you're off the grid, you like it and you like living this lifestyle and whatnot, and you want to just make some more money and be able to do more things and pay your bills and whatnot. Do you want to be off the grid, or do you see yourself getting on the grid again? Or
I definitely don't want to get on the grid, and I've always been tempted, not by the electrical grid, because I really don't use much electricity.
right?
I mean, I'm using the electricity right now for things most important to me is I can communicate with you. And I really don't need it for much else. There is a caveat to that. I would like to have more solar panels so that I can have a wood shop, because currently I do use a generator, a gasoline-powered generator to run the wood shop. And I'm publishing a video about that later today.
Do you
Anyway.
woodwork?
What?
Like, do you woodwork for money? Is that what you're saying, or for
Well,
just for
we work
yourself?
to make furniture here. It's a big place. I'm over 80 acres. There's 12 buildings now. I mean, I want to make chairs and tables and all that kind of stuff.
What's over 80 acres?
The place I live, the forest I live in.
Oh, 12 buildings that you have access to?
That I built.
Oh, you built 12. Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
it's a big project.
I don't know what's going on. I didn't know that. Okay.
That's okay.
So,
You know what?
so-
Anyway. So the water grid is far more
I've
tempting.
just been summoned for dinner. So,
Okay. All right,
All right,
Jay.
go
So it's nice talking to you.
anyway, yeah, I told you I could always
See you,
take for a minute. I'm surprised that it was this long, but a very
Well,
nice.
it's interesting questions. Thank you.
We'll talk again, I'm sure.
So
Okay, bye. All right, someone else jump in. Okay.
So,
So,
go ahead, continue. You got 12 buildings now. What? Yeah, go ahead.
well, there's a couple questions here. So it's a big place. There's a lot of resources and things, and you can look up Bosque Village and my name if you want.
For sure.
And you
I
can
definitely
find more
will.
about it. I'm working on solar dehydrator. I have that. I'm working on better solar ovens for cooking. We have a wood-fired sauna, wood-fired stoves. So any kind of alternative technology that we can use to make a less energy-intensive lifestyle that's still comfortable, that's in fact hopefully more fulfilling than the industrial one, I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So as far as being off the grid, the harder one is the water. Because I'm often tempted to have outside water because I could grow anything I want, I could do anything. But I don't even want to dig a well.
So why not? Yeah, not there. But
I don't want
so
to do it because I want to live only off rainwater. If you are stealing water from somewhere else, then it's theft. It's theft from a forest, it's theft from somebody else. It leads you to build a civilization that is not sustainable. When the water system fails in a civilization, the civilization dies.
That's why I asked if you were self-sustaining. I didn't know like what your situation was as far as that.
Well, it depends on the issue, and it's a great question. I'm not
and how self-sustaining you are. Like you said, you're right now on the teeter-tottering at the water issue, and so what's you said you're kind of at a crossroad here. Are you trying to get funding together and whatnot, and maybe is this going to end? Would this end for you, or would this? It could right now.
It depends. I could live here as a hermit just fine, and I could even just live off the land. But to be honest, it doesn't sound that fun to me. And I know it sounds romantic to a lot of people, like, oh, you live off the land, and stuff, be a mountain man.
Until you actually do it.
I can do it. I don't want to. I've done it enough. Fuck it, man. I've been here since 2004.
Right.
Living like that's lonely, it's educational, certainly, which is awesome. It's spiritually even educational. I got to avoid that word. But I don't want to do it. I mean, so if I'm going to have other people here, then they need to have some level of comfort. They need beds and they need some things. And I still want it to be a very rustic and extreme experience for them. But if I'm going to have people here, then I need to fund it. And so I'm going to put on crowdfunding. And it's not even able to be that expensive,
So that's your goal, is basically to have a community?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And what my thought on that, I mean, I have lots of thoughts on intentional communities, is to have people come through temporarily to enjoy the process, to see it as an adventure, and then have some of those people who aren't too annoying and who are potentially useful to stick around for a while. And preferably one of them will be a nice woman or something.
There you go. Preferably.
So I see you move there. Yeah. So that nerd Mike, for some reason, wants to know: have you ever eaten snake?
No, but I don't kill snakes here. There are snakes. There's boa constrictors and rattlesnakes. There is a guy a kid who's about 12 years old. There's a picture of this on my Flickr site. A bulldozer that I hired ran over a snake, and so he peeled it and ate it. But in general, no, I don't eat snakes. My primary meat source that I'm interested in is rabbits. And if you look up Brian Fay and raising rabbits, you'll find videos on that, my thoughts on why rabbits are an excellent meat source. So
they taste good too.
So, okay.
They presumably do, yeah.
So there are 12 buildings that you have now. How are there any other people living there besides you?
At the moment, I'm completely alone.
Wow.
The nearest person is about 3 kilometers away in a small town of about 400 people. I just had people for 2 months here, and that was interesting and tiring for me. It's a lot of work when there's people here, and we made some videos.
So I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. So when you have people there, is this like vacationers that want to come and check the place out? They pay you?
Well, I used to have more vacationers. I get contacted by about 10 to 40 people a month who want to come for free. And that makes me a little depressed, to be honest, because there ain't nothing for free in this world.
Yeah.
And so really what they're saying is they want someone to pay for them. And that's me. So I accept them as volunteers. I've stopped thinking that they're actually going to do any work because they are children of the industrial world and unable to do any real work. They don't have the attention span. They don't have the physical ability. This is not true of everyone, but about 95%. And so instead, I'm going to use them for producing videos, for being entertaining and fun. And you'll see right now on my Facebook group, Bosque Village, Courtney and Brian go to town. There's a video. I just posted one of a visitor doing hula hooping.
That sounds very sexual.
Going town.
No, it isn't. It definitely wasn't in that case. Maybe next time. But so the thought is almost to make it like something that is showing values of how we can live, how we can eat. We also did a bread baking video. It's not the first one we did. And so I'm changing my thoughts on what we produce, I guess, and that will educate, hopefully, and entertain, and help people also, if they want to fund it, see what they're funding. Because I'm suspicious of some of these crowdfunding projects where you're funding something and you don't really know what happens then.
Right.
I want it to be really clear.
It
Almost
gets
like a
you.
reality television show, but not negative or anything.
So would you
So-
object to being filmed if some network wanted to come out there and film your experience and fund your project? Would you object to that?
I would be very cautious, but interested.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
'cause they would-
I would
Yeah, is it
rather do it
safe in-
independently.
Is it safe in your
I'm sorry.
area? Christian wants to know.
Is it safe?
Yes.
I
is
get
it
that
safe?
question all the time. And if you look up on Google, Brian Fay, Violence, Mexico, you'll find my answer, but I'll give it to you here too. I've been here since 2004, and I have not felt unsafe for the reasons that you might imagine. I am not a narco trafficker, which means that they're not interested in me. I'm not important. I'm not competition. I'm a nice guy. I guard my reputation extremely well. And that's very important here. This is a very rural area that is largely outside of the control of what you might call a judicial system. So I'm in a place that's more like the Wild West, sort of. Like, if you're pissing people off here, then
they're going
you
to
might
deal with
die.
you.
Yeah.
Do you own a gun?
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay, no problem.
No problem.
But I don't mind it. I feel safe, very safe here. But at the same time, the
But like
reason
you
I'm
said, like you said, you established yourself, as you're probably about to say.
if you have a good reputation, then people want to take care of you. And if you don't, then they'll take care of you in a different way.
So, what can you give us a rundown of what the 12 buildings that you have? I mean, you're by yourself. You have 12 buildings that you've built apparently with your own hand. Give us some sense of what this compound is like. What do you do? Mike the Monk.
Right.
I've never met Mike the Monk. Hopefully he is not going to whip out his wang. Mike.
Why not?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
So
Mike's
give us
invisible.
some.
That's cool.
Nice
Yeah,
speakers, Mike.
Where are you? Where are you, Mike?
I'm in California. Where are you?
Mike,
I'm
where's
in
your
Richmond, Virginia.
face?
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia, Mike.
Mission, Virginia?
No, Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, Richmond, Virginia. Okay.
I'm from Michigan, Virginia.
Michigan, Virginia. Okay.
I'm from Michigan.
Okay, so Brian, give us a rundown of the
Sure.
the buildings that you have.
I'll give you a picture of the infrastructure here. So out in the middle of the woods, it's all pine, oak, and madrone trees with some others. The buildings are very spread out, so a lot of people are surprised when they come here and they have to walk far to get anywhere. I've got the lodge, which is a very large building, and that's where the main cooking happens when there's a lot of people. Right now, there aren't a lot of people. The building I'm in right now is called The View. It's built of wood, insulated with some mud.
Can we see it? Is there
and this
lights
is
at
where
all?
the
Or do you
internet
mind?
dish is. What's that?
Do you mind if we see it, or is there lights? Can we see it or not? Anything or no? Oh, it's constructed.
here,
I just want to see
fucking
construction.
dark, man.
Oh, okay. It's okay. I didn't know.
I mean, this is the light I got. My whole solar panel system is 340 watts of capture, so I have exactly enough to have this laptop running and this light.
I was gonna say it's not much what you got going on there. Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, recreational vehicles have more power than I do with their solar system. So
But
anyway, so this is a building I got here. There's 5 cabanas. I guess this counts as one. So 4 other cabanas. And then we built what was originally a chicken coop out of mud. It's also called cob, which is a building material. It's like adobe. And now that's a place to stay. That's near the casita, which is a place to hang out at night. Nobody sleeps there. Next to the casita is the sauna. The sauna is wood-fired. I don't offer hot showers, so people need to go in the sauna and get really hot and sweaty, and then they go out and they pour cold water on themselves and suffer, which I think is funny. Then there's Beltane, which is a hut. That was our first mud building we built, thinking people would stay in it, and that's a nice little small hut. And then there's Ecstasies, which is a 2-story cob building. We're not experts here. I mean, we're learning. It's
you keep saying we.
So I was just gonna say that. Why we?
Oh, well, first I've had people here before, and also I do work with people from the local town.
Got it.
So when you say, Shelton, I built all these by hand, I also paid other people to build them.
Oh, okay. So you didn't do. You weren't
I'm not
like
that great a builder, and I
you
didn't
weren't
do all
like
this shit
Grizzly
myself.
Adams. You didn't just build it by yourself. You had people to help.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that would be cooler, wouldn't it? But no.
Yeah, it would be much cooler.
And really, when I look at crowdfunding it, that's the people I'm trying to support. Because,
Mike,
like I said, I can do this.
I'm
I
sorry.
can just
Mike,
do it
are
alone.
you washing dishes?
sorry?
Yeah, I can mute myself. Now I'll mute myself.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to get on cam or something, or talk, or ask questions or anything, or?
I'll go out. Maybe I'm
Good.
taking up.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I
would like Nook to jump in. This would be an interesting conversation if Nook jumped in to talk to our
Nook,
man.
why don't you jump in? I know you got questions.
Nook must have some questions to ask.
I believe she's
Yep.
on her phone, though. I think
Oh,
she's
she's on her
working.
phone?
I'm not
Okay.
sure. I'm not sure.
So, how many people what from a psychological standpoint? What's it like being alone? For like how long are you alone for any one particular time?
I think the longest period I've actually not talked to anyone at all was before I got internet. It was probably about 6 weeks. Just never leaving, never going to town at all. And, by then I was used to it. It was in the first 2 years I was here. But even then, like going to town and talking to someone in a store in broken Spanish wasn't that fulfilling. Now I'm at the point where if I want people, I can say they can come, and that's fine. I have people here almost every day from the local town, but and it's cool, and they're my friends. I mean, they're nice people. I care about them. They consider me, well, some of them consider me part of their family. I go to their kids, little event things and all that.
That's cool.
But we have language barrier. I do speak Spanish, but I'm not eloquent.
You've been there for 5 years. You said, right?
No, since
No,
2004.
since 2004.
Oh, okay.
11
I'm sorry.
years.
11 years. Okay. So have you had any relationships in that time? Have you met any women there, or what's that like?
Well, my ex-girlfriend stayed here for 5 years, which was cool.
Oh, the one I thought. Okay, so
No,
the
that was a different one.
Oh, a different one. You ran away from one, and then she found one in Mexico. And
Well, she came down. She was a gringa.
Came with you. Gotcha. Okay.
Didn't come with me. No, she came down afterwards. But
Oh.
there's
Did you
been
know
women
her-
around. I've
know
never
her in
had.
real life?
What's that?
Did you know her in the real life?
No, we had chatted for like a year, just not even knowing that she would ever come down. We were just chatting because we were lonely people.
Gotcha.
And then she was during a period of life change, and then we thought, well, fuck it, why don't you come down here? So she did, and I said she could stay for 3 days. She stayed for 5 years. So
Oh, Marley is a great guest. She would be excellent to interview you.
Two
Marley
soft
always
titties.
Marley always has something interesting to say.
So we
Marley,
have a question, Brian. This is a serious one. It's not a joke. Have you ever seen UFOs at all?
ever seen what?
UFOs.
Out there?
Well, UFO means unidentified flying object, right?
Right. Exactly.
I have seen a flying object I could not identify. I'll be right back.
Was it flying at some rate of speed or some direction which does not account for any flying vehicle that you know?
It did not fit any patterns I know, but I'm not gonna say it was men or
Okay.
anything. I don't know anything about that. So I'll
Well,
be right back.
you did say that without saying it, but
He said he has to go do so. Probably goes. He's probably having a bio break, as John Preda would say.
bio break. Very interesting guest, Shelton. How did he come in?
I've seen him around before.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
He just happened to decide to stop and chat. So
Interesting.
Watching the game.
The game's on right here. Just jump in real quick.
Come on,
you're not watching the game. Don't use that freaking.
You're a great guest. You're a great guest. You always have something interesting to say. Come on.
I'm watching the game.
Marley.
Oh, don't jump at the screen. Tell you about to jump through.
I'm proving to you that I am watching the game. See?
I know you're watching the game, but it doesn't mean you can't jump on.
I know, but I gotta pay attention. I've jumped in on commercial. Look, and I'm already in bed, and it's dark.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
not gonna be on here.
Well, at least you proved it to us.
Oh, you can stay in chat. You always have.
Mike says you and Marley would make an amazing couple.
He does tweet me poetry like every day.
I do. I tweet her up a lot of poetry. She's one of the several women I tweet poetry to because she's a good sport and she won't think it's weird. Hopefully.
Yes, it's very cool.
Okay, so
I'm gonna go watch the game.
Marley, please.
Okay. Please stay, please.
Please. What were you gonna ask me? What?
So ask him some questions, Marley.
Ask us some questions. I just barely came in. I have no idea what you guys were talking about.
Your question, Marley.
What?
Who are you?
Who am I? What a loaded question. Are you sitting
loaded.
down?
It's very simple. Couldn't be simpler. Would you like a different question?
No.
Oh. Marley's gone. Okay.
Well, that was frightening for her, I suppose.
I wish Lee would jump in. He's a great guest to ask. So the question in the chat room is, how do you get your internet access?
It's very simple. I have solar panels about 200 yards from this building. I actually built this building here because it has line of sight to a satellite tower. And so I connect via fixed wireless to there. And I guess that's it. I mean, yeah. And sometimes it goes out. I've been hit by lightning twice. I've only been hit personally once, but my tower got hit twice. And that blows it out. But yeah, it's great. And having internet is awesome. I mean, this is my only connection to the world, really, except for having people here as visitors or volunteers.
Do you have family members that you keep in contact with?
I'm sorry?
And do you have family members that you keep in contact with?
I'm not super close with my family, so I haven't really talked to them in a couple of years.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So where did you get the money to build the buildings? That's one question.
Well, before I came here, I was a geek. So I did computer stuff.
So you saved money, made money?
Yeah. I worked since, my first job was when I was 8 years old. I sold fruits and vegetables out of a wheelbarrow. And then I did a bunch of other stuff.
I know, but that's going back in your history and everything. Like I guess Shelton was kind of asking, what exactly basically was your seed when you got there? How did you start out? And, did you have like 30 grand saved up and left and then started that community?
A lot more than that.
Okay,
I'm trying to shit with 30 grand.
Okay, I threw a number out there, but I'm just wondering. So you had some money saved up, and you went off the grid and said, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do."
When I was 37, I had by that time made a lot of money. I am sort of smart, although apparently dumb enough to say that, since people don't like to hear that sort of thing. But I rented my brain out for a long time to various corporations, and saved up money. I lived very cheaply, and that gave me the ability to do this. I don't come from rich people. I come from fairly poor people, but I worked hard, lived cheap, and it took a lot of resources to do this. It's not simple. The actual price of the land, which some people ask me about, was far less than what I sold my house for in Seattle. So the land was fairly cheap. The thing is that there's no electricity or water here. And so if you're willing to live off the grid, the land's really cheap. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
So just for to establish, are you in any way connected to Microsoft's?
Well, on LinkedIn it says I am, and I was, yeah.
Okay, so you now when do you know Bill Gates?
No, Bill Gates probably doesn't even know my name.
Okay, just wanted to
Yeah, you
establish.
worked for him for many years. That's what he does.
So
He
did a lot
doesn't
of other
know.
people.
Yeah, exactly. I know. That's what I mean. That's what I meant by that.
And I like Microsoft. I do. They treated me very well, and the stock options worked out nicely. I worked my ass off for them, and I know there's lots of criticisms of them, but they produce lots of good software that people do use. And so, yeah, Microsoft is great for me.
So Marley wants to know if it's more of a like Mormon polygamous compound, or are you getting prepared for doomsday?
Well, I'm always interested in the word. I'm always interested in the word compound, and I think Shelton, you used it too. I usually picture a compound as having like walls and shit, and this is the forest. It's doesn't feel like a compound to me, but maybe other people don't have the same association.
Maybe a settlement. Is that a better word?
What?
Settlement.
Well, there's only one person here, so even that would be a stretch, wouldn't it? Even village. The word village is a stretch.
Hamlet.
Right now, it's a dork in the woods, you know.
Yeah. So. Do you have any religious beliefs at all?
I don't know. Yeah, let's look at that. Mormon polygamous compound.
Yeah, like I was wondering if you're gonna start a cult out there or something, or
it would be easy to do that. There's plenty of people looking for cults, but no, I don't really like the kind of people who want to be in a cult. Maybe I should.
But you wouldn't be objected to it. It sounds like.
What's that?
I said you wouldn't be objected to it. It sounds like though.
I don't. I mean, I left Seattle because some people were looking at me with glassy eyes. I don't want that shit.
I mean, you do look very, somewhat cult-like.
I understand that, yeah.
So, okay, so, that is,
The thing is, I'm very much in favor of people building up their own personal power and being independent. In other words, I like people who are more like me. And so maybe I need to be more accepting of people who are willing to fit into systems, because if you do get a bunch of people like me together, guess what happens? Conflict. And so it could be I should be more open to that. But even so, even if people come here and they want to be followers in some sense, it's very important to me that everybody be developing their personal skills, that they're gaining their own power, because that's a very important part of my whole philosophy.
Got it. So
followers would make me uncomfortable.
So followers would make you feel, but you said you would be open to it. So if you had followers and people that were, like you said, have the ability to do things and self-sustain and put their contribution into play in your environment, you would be okay with leading that group of people, or no?
I guess, but really, systems have to get set up so that, because I'm going to die someday anyway.
Yeah.
And so the problem with the personality cults is that they're weak because they're based on a person. The person dies, the thing fucking fails or gets really twisted and strange.
Right.
And that's so right. It's very important that whatever happens gets built up. And I have mixed thoughts on what you're saying, and this is really core stuff. It's a great question. There are people who want to follow. And the truth is, followers are what make a place work. It's not the fucking leaders. The leaders are little icons that survive a brief time and then they're gone. And so if I need to play a leader role for people, I can do it, I suppose. But I don't want to be put on a goddamn pedestal, then get knocked off of it. I'm a fucked up, strange person. And to not see me as anything but that is messed up. I don't like religion. And I would be willing to accept people who are followers because they're functional, awesome people who make things actually work. They're the real people who build something.
Yeah.
But it has to be built in a way that when I die, the thing continues to function in a positive way. And you can't build something in an individual and have it be strong.
And also, it seems to me as though that you're basing your whole, right as of right now, your whole ideology is kind of anti-civilization to begin with, which in civilization would involve more than just you. Like your ideology seems like it would be anti any kind of group, because by definition, you would say
I'm fairly anti-authoritarian.
Well, I think what he's saying is, he's anti people. Like I was asking him, like he would want people to contribute. So if that was the case and people are contributing to the community, that's why I asked him that question: would he be susceptible to being a leader? And he said yes. So all that needs to be put in place is those people. So if you had those, that.
And I am open to that. I'm consciously open to that.
Can you paint a picture of what it would be like? Let's say me, Shelton, 5 other people came, and we had this skill, this skill, this skill, and this skill that definitely benefited you. What would and obviously 3 beautiful women. What would our path be?
I like that question, and I can try and paint that picture for you. First, there is a base set of rules here, and it's not negotiable. There's some things that are required for the survival of the space. And so if I get 5 people coming here that all want to be in charge, it won't work. They'll all have different views. Most of them will be fairly spoiled people from the industrial world who are thinking short term. So I've had to learn that the hard way, because there have been people who came here and threatened the project, and they didn't even know it, and they're nice people.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a base set of rules that exist, and those are up front. I'm writing those up now. I have a wiki. I'm putting them in. I have also roles defined that people can fit into. So let's say I'm talking to you, right? Which I am, conveniently enough. And so what we would do is we would look at what skills you have to provide and also what your needs are. And your needs hopefully would be fairly low, since it's a fairly low-tech place. You'd be eating healthy food, living in the dark at night, having some light during the day. We'd work on publishing things that help you in your, let's say, music career, if you're into that, or supporting your ability to make money online, which is cool because it's great if you can make money online. Supporting your artistic development, supporting your relationships with people who are either here or passing through, you learning Spanish, because that's kind of important. So what exact role you would fit into would depend on you and what you're best at, what you're interested in. Because fitting you in to some system in a way that doesn't make you fulfilled and happy isn't going to work. And that's true of any other individual coming through. I want to maximize their potential. I don't want to fit people into some rigid structure where they can only do one thing all the time. That is bullshit. I wouldn't fit into it. I don't want to make other people fit into it.
Right.
5 people is a great number, because what I need to do is have a core base team of about 5 or 6 people, so that then I can invite other people who are more temporary.
So you thought this through, because you said 5 is the perfect number, and you could do. Okay, so this has been a plan of yours.
I'd tell you what happens is, this is exactly what happens. Right now, people do come here, and I've hosted probably, over 2,000 people here, but they're all just passing through. And so when they come here, I, as a human being, I, as an individual, a flawed, odd guy, just get crushed by it. I'm on duty all the time. I have to take care of them and what they forgot. And if they get sick, and I'm their psychologist, their taxi driver, I'm their everything. And that does not work for me very long. I get exhausted quickly. And also I'm increasingly grumpy, and, I'm getting older. And so I just don't want to fucking put up with it. So it's better if there's other people.
And it's not a part of your rules.
What's that?
It's not a part of your rules either. It's breaking your rules, going against your rules. No, is what in your mind.
Well, I can say things like be prepared. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Oh no, I was just saying, like in general, you were talking about people, and I said that would be them going against your rules.
Well,
that
sometimes,
yeah.
Like for example, smokers shouldn't come here. I have a non-smoking rule. That's probably my hardest core rule.
Okay.
Because it just doesn't fit with smokers. Smokers will smoke, so they shouldn't come here.
So, Carol Ann wants to know how would living with you help someone's music career?
Oh, I would love to answer that. I personally am very interested in things like permaculture, agriculture, energy systems, and all that. But I'm also interested in all parts of cultural design, like how we live as a culture. And so, as far as music goes, I'm going to do a little preface on this before I give you the real answer. I'm interested in Creative Commons music. I'm interested in us actually owning the music that we share. Right now, you can't even play Happy Birthday on a YouTube video without violating a copyright. That is terrible. We as a culture no longer own our own music. We no longer own our culture. Now, that's relatively new. Let's get back to your actual question. The question is, how could a musician benefit from being here? Well, first of all, they're removed from all their distractions, right? And so they can actually focus in on their music, creating their own music. And so they could create their own kind of musical boot camp where they're signed on to and motivated to get really deep into their music. I'm not musical at all, so I can't help with that directly, but I can provide the stage, the space in which to do that. 2, if you're combined here as a musician with other people who are here as documentarians, I'm better at that end of things, people who are videoing you, your process, your result, then all of a sudden as a musician, you are producing more than you ever have, and in a very honest and pure way, undistracted by other things. So it's really up to the individual musician. Ideally, of course, if the musician has a following and the Bosque has a following, then we can steal each other's audience. And so my fans become your fans become my fans, and more music gets produced. And I'm hoping actually that some of that music gets released as Creative Commons, which means that you're sharing it with the entire world. That if you write a song here, that then anybody else in the world who sees that can make their own version of it. That helps you because anytime they do that, they have to credit you. So it's largely a publicity thing. We're looking at a whole new model for how creative works happen. And so if you're a musician, then I'm hoping you come here and benefit greatly. Is that a good answer? Did she like that?
It sounds like a good answer to me. But
I only heard part of it.
You play
it? She said that's really how the music process works. She said it's not really how the music process works. I'll take it as an answer.
Well, the music process, in terms of the industry of it, I almost don't care about it. I think it's polluted and terrible. As far as your own personal music process, creatively speaking, I don't know how yours works. I realize a lot of it, people who are creative deal with inspiration and things like that. But I think there's a lot of ways things can work. And I also think that creative people benefit from being pushed into situations that are difficult for them or that give them constraints. Now, I have my own creative life and creative processes, primarily to do with painting, etc. But yeah, for you, as far as what it applies to you, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, don't come. If it does, do.
Yeah, sure.
So are you Jay? Let me interject briefly. Are you looking for followers actively? I mean, it sounds like you sort of thought this out, and you're waiting with bated breath for your 5 followers to continue on with your vision of. Are you trying
to put in an application, Shelton?
No, I'm just curious. Would you consider what your vision to be utopian or no?
That question's for me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have people coming through all the time. As many as I want, I can have come through. I have become somewhat misanthropic. I mean, the problem is I've accepted too many people who just want a week's-long vacation for free. They call themselves volunteers. And so I've become more cautious about who I want to accept because I have to babysit them usually.
That's what I was going to ask. I'm sorry to interject. What's the age group?
Oh, they're early 20s, man.
That's what I figured. A bunch of okay.
Yeah, like 20, 22. And so, of course, what do you expect? It's, yeah. So right now I'm actually switching to look more locally within the state of Michoacan for people who don't have to leave their families, but they can come here and then go home and stuff like that. And I have a person, Uruapan, a nearby place, who we're talking about her coming more often. And I think that's been a mistake I've made in a sense, is looking at lots of foreign people who have no commitment to anywhere and they're just travelers. And that's okay to be a traveler, but they're not going to build anything, And so I'm ready for, 5, 6 people, but I got to pick more carefully. I do got to get older with the demographic, because maybe some people in their 30s would be more willing to commit for, more than a week. But I mean, the people I've had are, they've been traveling for 3 years. Of course, they're not going to settle anywhere. They're rich kids with trust funds, they're from rich families. I need people who actually want to care, either from an ideological standpoint or because economically they want this. So I just talked to a guy here it's funny, his name's Buddha. He's a local guy. And he's very interested in it. And we worked today on video editing to teach him video editing. Anyway, back to the question. I'm totally ready for people, cautious as hell, and as should they be, because I'm nuts in some sense. Yeah, so we'll see. I need to realize very pragmatic.
Well, it seems to me that like you're from just what you've said, that you're open to apostolates or followers, but you're not like, it's not like you're not actively seeking.
Yeah, but it would definitely be like I estimated. I think a thing that he'd be open to. I think if somebody came and was, definitely beneficial to your community, you would accept them with open arms.
Yeah, I would. And somebody there says that Carol Ann, I guess, says something about it. Sounds like a lot of pretty glitter.
He doesn't have any followers. It's just him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sugarcoating anything here. I mean, I'm saying I'm misanthropic, nuts, that I have no power. I could say the place is kind of dirty often because it's a lot of dust around. I mean, I am trying to be very honest, and actually I'm trying to produce more video on how to communicate the goal of the place. My values are not in tune with everybody's values, and so I'd like to say that up front and have them not be here. I don't want conflict. So I think I'm doing my best.
Yeah, he doesn't have anybody with him to have romantic relationships with. So if
that doesn't mean he hasn't had romantic relationships.
Yeah, he's had romantic relationships, but if he did, she wants to know if you like. He has had romantic relationships, just not right now.
Yeah, I've had a couple issues there. One is that, and if there's any interest there, hey baby, how you doing? I have had the unfortunate experience of having some women who see me online and decide that I am wonderful without knowing me, and then make up a fantasy relationship in their life and do things like want to leave their husband and come here and stuff. And I really got to recommend against that. It's an uncomfortable thing for me. It's sort of a stalker type thing that I don't enjoy. It hasn't happened very often, but it's really not good.
Do you have women throw themselves at you and like kind of want to drop everything and come out there and live with you?
Right. And they get married and control me and stuff, and that's just not going to work out. So while I am open to romantic things, I really think it's unwise and uncomfortable for me if people try and create that without actually knowing me. I'm an actual person, and I'm fairly difficult in relationships, perhaps, or maybe wonderful, I don't know. But it's really fucked up to be a stalker person, so don't do it.
Seems like you've had some stalkers.
Just 2.
Okay.
But that's too many.
1 too many, yeah. 2 too many.
2 too many. Anyway, but I'm a fairly nice guy. I have been sexy and personal at times. So I am open to that, but at the same time.
Yeah, Will in China asks, which I kind of asked earlier, and which you can elaborate on. What is your plan or vision for the next 2 years? Like you said, you were kind of running out of funds and whatnot, and you're trying to get funds together. So, what's your vision? Like,
Sure.
And I asked you that too. Like, what's your end game? What would happen? If this did not sustain.
Well, there's a couple options here. One is just kind of give up, which is certainly reasonable. I've hung in there a long time. But and I just paint. I do paint things and just not care anymore. Fuck the world. The world doesn't care about itself. But I'm a fairly stubborn person, and also I don't really want to be alone, so I probably won't do that. My current success plan would be to restart the volunteer program and have people coming through as participants while broadcasting it. And I'm doing that right now. So right now you can go look up videos. I just posted one today. Wasn't that exciting, but it's okay. I have another one I will probably have ready for tomorrow showing what's going on here. Once I have videos going out, then I'll put up the crowdfunding site. Suddenly money's coming in, hopefully. Then I can have more people here and we'll be producing more videos. And it won't just all be fun or art or anything. It'll be really, I hope, deep, sustainable stuff, sustainable laboratory type stuff. How can we cook with the sun? How can we eat better? How can we make decisions? Really designing a new culture. And I could go on for another couple hours ranting about shit and preaching, but let's skip that. So in the next 2 years, let's say, let's go to like 6 months or a year. If I can get my core team of 5 or 6 people here, and they're running different buildings, so I'm not the only one cooking, I'm not the only one answering questions, I'm not hired by everybody. I get to have some, personal interactions that aren't just me teaching or something. Then I can invite more people in who are here more temporary and have it be good. So the total production of cool videos goes up, money's being handled, more things are getting planted, more cool projects. A year goes by, 2 years, we've got 20 to 25 people on site, right? Now we've got 8 people who are stable. We've got cool visitors who are artists, who are interesting, who have YouTube channels that are popular. These are all, cross-promoting each other. We're reviewing products that are interesting. Perhaps there's affiliate marketing going on. And all of a sudden I become a happier person because I'm not a damn hermit in the woods. Probably getting laid too, which would be nice. Let's get down to real pragmatics here. Anyway,
let's just break it down the reality here.
At that point, you have something that can last a little bit. And then you try and build it to something stable. I need a will. So when I'm going to die, I'm very aware of death right now because I'm very proud of what I've done in my life. Okay. And if I die tomorrow, the project has failed. This land will go to somebody who doesn't care about it. And what I'm really trying to build is a cultural entity. It's almost like founding a circus. I don't know if you know Daniel Quinn, who that is.
Yeah, I know the name.
Ishmael. He wrote the book Ishmael.
Oh, yes.
Right. Well, in one of his books, it is not fiction. He talks about these small societies as a circus, a tribe in a sense. People who have a connected interest in creating something. And I like the analogy. So something that when I am ready to die, I can think, hey, I made a contribution to the world. I made an alternative model society, small or something that was eating correctly, that was building buildings correctly, that was sort of happy mostly, that was able to deal with conflicts well, also that was able to have diversity within their community. Because unfortunately, most of your communities that actually survive are extremely narrow. The most survivable communities are ones that are extremely spiritually based. So they're authoritarian based on an invisible entity represented by people who want to be in charge of you. Well, they survive well, but I don't want to live in one. So,
yeah.
So it seems like the issue, not issue, but question I have is, right now you're alone, and your only access to the world is the internet. Are you proselytizing? Are you trying? Is that what or do you see Blab as an opportunity to get followers? I mean, what's going on?
I'm talking to you because I am promoting my vision in the world. So I am proselytizing, I suppose.
Okay, so you see Blab as perhaps an opportunity to network with people that perhaps might come join you. Is that what you're saying it is?
That is correct. With every person on the right there who's chatting, I think maybe that person shares some of the vision. And I don't really care whether they come and join me here or not. What I care about is whether they're thinking in their own lives about these kind of important issues. Of course, I also have in my mind that some of the people who see this, perhaps the recorded version or whatever, or the other videos that I make, will want to come here and invest. They'll say, hey, I don't like living the way I live. I don't like the things I'm paying for in my society. I mean, you don't get to a place I'm at by liking how things are. What's interesting is most people don't like how things are. They don't like paying for wars where innocent people die. The people in the United States, I don't think, generally want to have a society in which they imprison more people per capita than any other. They don't want to be an obese nation of diabetics. They don't want to live this way. But what choice do they have day to day? None.
They have a lot of choices. Everyone's got
choices. They have a lot of choices, but it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's whether they choose to make that choice or not, but everyone's got choices. But
it's difficult. I mean, I'm sympathetic with people living in that world. I don't feel like I've really escaped in some sense until other people can too. And
even though that's perfectly said what you just said, you've escaped in some sense. You're off the grid, but you still haven't escaped because you're not fully self-sufficient, and you're still right now completely you're kind of not completely dependent on, but right now you're at a point in your life or time you're going to be dependent on somebody eventually, or need to be, or else this is going to end. Right?
I could just kill myself tomorrow. I'd be fine.
Well, aside from being morbid and, doing things like that and, whatever, but yeah.
I mean, it's all optional, right?
It's all optional.
We all play the game we want to play here. But I guess my point is that a lot of people are pretty locked into systems that are tough for them. I mean, if you're under the water on paying your house mortgage, right? If your only option is a job you hate, if you're in a relationship that is unfulfilling, then and your food options are terrible. I mean, it's a difficult position, and I'm very sympathetic with that.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so a couple questions. Will wants to know. He understands the cost of the internet. What are the other costs that you have there?
They've gone down. There used to be a lot more, and if I don't do anything, I have low costs. Currently, I buy gasoline in order to fire up a generator so that we can fire up the wood shop. And that will be in my next video I post. That would be solved with more solar panels, which I don't currently have the cash to buy. So I'm kind of in a spot there. But that's my own choice. I could just stop building things, and that would solve it. My van tires are very old. They'll pop. I won't have money to buy them. That's another thing. I want to get burros, what do you call them? Donkeys in English? Yeah. Donkeys. And that way I wouldn't need a van at all. The van is very handy though. So there's a cost, is owning a vehicle. It's not actually licensed anywhere, which I certainly should not be saying on a recorded video. What other costs do I have? Food is a very low cost. And that's one of the reasons that when people say, are you self-sustainable with food, that I don't really think it's the biggest issue. I live in the state of Michoacan. It's a great state. Fresh fruits and veggies cost almost nothing here. It's not a big problem. And it's a lot of cost in terms of work to raise your own food. So when people come here and, they want me to be, providing food for 10 people, and they want me to have grown it all, that's a lot of food. And if they're paying anything at all, it just doesn't make sense.
So you don't, do you have a garden?
Oh, I have lots of gardens.
Oh, right. Okay. That's it.
I practice a form of gardening called food forest farming. Is my primary form, which doesn't involve any irrigation. I'm against irrigation, which almost means I'm against agriculture, which pretty much
I was
means
gonna
I'm
say.
against civilization.
What's going on? How are you living? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay,
What's that?
another question we have is, and I don't know how serious this is, but if the 5 people came to be with you, would it be polygamism, or would it be, what would be the living arrangements of the
Sure.
people, especially if there were women involved?
She's totally serious. She's
totally serious.
I get confused on the term polygamy and other terms, but basically, I don't care who fucks who. It's none of my business. I am not a big fan of marriage. I think that people should be voluntarily together without the state being involved. And
So,
that
yes,
doesn't
you would
mean there
have
can't be long-term commitments, and it certainly doesn't mean that there can't be great care of children. I think one of the reasons to have stable relationships is to care for children. If you have a good extended family, a good extended tribe, then the children can be very well taken care of, very well educated by the community, whether or not they're biologically related to the educators.
This okay. Sorry to interrupt. This brings up a very interesting point. So are you suggesting that if, say, 3 women and 2 men came to be with you, that like this is where, like, what would be your position? Like, would you like just be hanging out and like there'd be like a polymorphous, amorous situation?
An orgy?
Yeah.
Orgy?
Would that be your expectations, or would it just be like, I'm cool with whatever you guys do?
I am cool with what people do if it's consensual. There have been times when there's groups of volunteers here and that there is a fair amount of fucking going on that I usually don't know much about directly. And I think if they're safe and they're fine, then they're fine.
You've never been involved with any of it?
What's that?
You've never been involved with any of it at all?
I'm going to skip the details on that. I'll say it's been rare. I usually have stayed out of it because the thing is that they're such temporary people that even though they're cute and smart, usually they're not worth it for me to get involved in.
Sure.
I'm interested in longer term things. And so I'm okay with polyamory. That's totally cool. In fact, I think that's a better idea than doing what most people in society do, which is lie to their partner and sleep around.
Yep.
I do not like infidelity. I think it's a disease in culture, and it's very common. I don't like it when women have come on to me and said, "Oh, keep it a secret." I don't want to be involved in that. I think it's evil, and though tempting sometimes. So I think that polygamy can be great, and I think it's actually a solution to some of the constraints that people find in their limited, frustrated, and sexless marriages. But it's tricky. It's not a magic solution in any way. A couple books on that most people know are like, Ethical Slut is a common one. I like the book Sex at Dawn is a good recommendation. And I guess I just want people to be happy and fulfilled. But that requires something other than just thinking, okay, let's have a big orgy and let's all fuck. It does require us to, as we reject the dominant restrictive society that makes us have sucky sexual lives, I think it requires us to then think, okay, what will actually work for us long term beyond just a festival or a party?
Well, I appreciate your honesty. I mean, that definitely clears up some questions I had.
Definitely more susceptible to being a cult.
Yeah.
Now that.
Well, the thing is this: if sex becomes a focal point of the place, it will destroy it, and that's because it will attract a bunch of assholes and creepy people. And so the difficulty here, and this is one of the rules I've made, which I've just broken, about broadcasting video about such things, is to have sex not be broadcast. Like, we just won't talk about it. Because, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? If
What's
you
that?
have a sexually open environment, it just attracts.
It won't work.
That's
Yeah,
all.
it'll check the wrong element, of course, sure.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah.
but if you have, I think that kind of, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with that type of environment. I would say attracting those types of people. You know what I mean?
So okay,
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be very careful about it, and that's why I'm somewhat misanthropic. I mean, I got to be very cautious. I mean, to be honest, in the last 2 years, I have fucked 2 people. Now,
you're living off the grid, though.
Very many. Well, yeah, I don't have very many people through. I haven't been accepting hardly anyone. But back in Seattle, I can tell you that was not the case. You know, so. And if I have to, the thing is, if I have to, I'll be celibate to make this thing work. Sex is not my number one priority at all, although I do miss it.
Okay, one question is, any advice for building the confidence needed to leave a standard life? If someone was interested in joining your whatever you want to call it,
Shelton wanted to go with confidence.
Yeah, what would you suggest I do to leave the normal life, leave the grid, to come live with you?
I have a great recommendation, and it's not going to be what you're going to expect. I've talked to so many idealistic people, I tell you. It's crazy. Make a fuck ton of money in the industrial world. Get everything you can out of the industrial world. Suck the money out of that system like a fucking vampire. Get everything you can. Now, at the same time, build your skills so that you can live in an alternative way. But I live among people who are very poor. And you know what they do? They leave here and they go to the United States to work. And so the idea for someone in the industrial world to say, oh, I'm just going to leave the industrial world and live like a poor person and it'll all be okay. No. The people who already do that leave here to go there to get money. So get realistic, make all the money you can up there, and make your escape plan extremely solid. That'd be my advice.
So, Marley wants to know: are you lonely?
I'm very lonely. Yeah.
I have the question: how much? I only see you in the evenings on Blab. So what are you doing? What are you doing when you're not on Blab?
Well, in the daytime, I'm mapping gardens. I am GPSing land to look at water flow. I am wondering about my life. I made a big bunch of food today to eat for the next couple days. I am comforting my dog who got attacked by all the other dogs today because dogs are assholes. I'm fixing my dog's foot because we made a brush fire to burn some brush, and then my dog stepped on it, so I put coconut oil on it.
Here's a good question. Not to interrupt you, but Will said,
yeah, go ahead.
What's the minimum amount of cash to suck before jumping? Before you would need to leave? What is I think that's what he was asking.
It's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know, and it depends on what you want to do. In my case, it was a lot of cash because I have big goals, and I like money. I did like money.
Well, I was just about to say, how could you want to be like money and like the monetary, aspects of it if being off the grid,
Well, in some sense, money
doesn't exist. It is a game. It is a game, but it doesn't exist where you are.
It does exist where I am.
I mean,
and like I said, when you talk about poor people here who have to leave their families for 8 months out of the year to go across the border and work, they understand money a lot better than people from.
I didn't mean where you are specifically geographically. I meant in your life. Obviously you're not. Spending money on a daily basis.
Like I said, though, if I'm doing anything, I'm spending money.
Okay.
So the people who come over from the local town and work don't work for free. And I overpay them. And I want to pay them more. So I have not escaped the money system. And I think that this idea that people have is they reject capitalism while wanting to build more of it with socialism is delusional, and I don't take them seriously anymore. They're dumbass hippie fuckers. And so I hear it a lot because they think that I'm a person who is a person to admire or something because I somehow escaped something. I haven't escaped. And what's interesting is the very people who say that stuff, who want to come here, you know, who are going to Harvard or whatever, studying social justice, who want to come here and stay for free, are the most hypocritical assholes I can imagine. They're going to go and get jobs at the UN making tons of money. And at the moment, in their youth, they want to come here and be part of the abusive system that actually keeps people poor. I've lost patience with that shit. And so like back to the other question about how much money do you need? I don't know. If you just want to live off the grid and do nothing and live on almost nothing, you can do that. I suspect you don't want to be honest. Now, I'm all for you doing it. It's an educational process, and it teaches you about how things work. And you can live in a hut. Now, I would recommend a couple things. One, pick a good climate, because you don't want to live in Maine in the winter on nothing. I moved to a very good climate. I made spreadsheets even of climates around the world. And I live in a climate where I don't have to use energy for heating or cooling. I have no refrigeration. I have no heating in my buildings. That's pretty cool. I mean, I do have fireplaces in some, but they're really cosmetic. You don't have to have one to survive. And so moving away from places where you have to have expensive energy to live is a good idea. Energy will only get more expensive. So that's part of my advice. Move to a place where you can live cheaper. Two, I mentioned before, food, veggies and fruits are very cheap here because this is where they come from. So, you know, if you want to live in Chicago in the winter, how are you going to get cheap food? They don't grow it there. Well, I live where they grow it. I'm growing it. So I would recommend leaving the climates that are difficult to live in. What else? Don't have any expensive vices, you know. This is my most expensive vice right here. This is cheap ass beer. It's not good beer, but it's beer. I can make mead, which is, I have bees, so you can make mead with honey. It's fermented honey. But, so anyway, back to the question of money. You can do it, but don't be delusional and don't be young and think that you can just go live on nothing. There's that guy, what's his name? He moved up to Alaska and died or whatever. Delusional, spoiled little child, industrial world. You guys don't know who I'm talking about?
No, I can't think of his name.
I was sorry, I was not listening. What was the name?
This guy, he was a young little pseudo rebel who moved off and lived in a bus about half a mile or something from civilization, Alaska, and died eating dumbass roots because he didn't know how to.
Oh, you mean no? In the Into the Wild, that kid?
Yes, Into the Wild.
Into the Wild.
Anybody who respects that guy and thinks that guy knew what he was doing, don't come here. Please.
No, it was. That's just. I mean, it was something for like society to have and to like I mean, whatever. But that's a true story, though, right? I mean, the guys.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Yeah,
and I do respect the idea of rejecting things, and I understand being a rebel. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But don't be a dumbass rebel.
Right, and be knowledgeable and whatnot. And yeah, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I studied my whole life to do this, and I acted. I mean, I was working on survival things when I was a kid. And, Chris McCandless. Yeah, that's his name. And I'm not insulting him as an individual. He was a confused guy trying to do what he could do, just like all of us try and do. But if you look, I worry about people who look up to that kind of person. Let me give you a good example. A guy came here. He was, I think, French or something. And he wanted to harvest things and eat them. Now, I can't babysit everybody all the time. He harvested some beans off of a plant. They're big seeds off of a plant, and he ate them. Now, those weren't poisonous, but there's a plant right next to it that is one of the most toxic in the world. It's a castor oil plant, and you can make a very bad thing with it. If he would have eaten like 8 of those, he could have died. He would have died. Now, that would have been inconvenient for me. Bad for him, I suppose, but he would be dead. But more importantly, be inconvenient for me because then people are like, oh, this guy died at Brian's place, And the thing is, I almost want to make a rule here and this gets into like difficulties that I have, I guess. Don't touch anything. You know, I don't want idealistic people coming here and just fucking with shit and killing themselves. There's also mushrooms here, for example, that are deadly, like super deadly. So don't think you're Mr. Naturalist going out there and I'm going to eat some mushrooms. No, get trained to eat the right mushrooms. There's like 5 different awesome mushrooms here you can eat. So get trained to eat them, eat those, and don't eat the other ones.
So Swag Queen, briefly, Swag Queen, what do you have to say? Anything, or you just want to jump in for some reason? Okay, never mind. Okay. Do you have any? I think we've talked for some time. Do you have any any wrap up, any conclusion, any summary that you want to give us about your vision for living off the grid?
Sure. Well, first, I'm always happy that people are interested. I think interest actually is growing in alternative ways of living. I think more and more people are seeing frustrations that they have with the financial system as it is, the governance system, and hopefully in their own lives, what culture that they're living in, because that's the real power we have. I think a lot of people feel powerless about anything they can do about it, and they're right. They are powerless. But they have control of their own lives in the space that they live in. So that's what I'm more interested in. A lot of the experiments I do here are very rural. They're very out there, I realize. I am also interested in creating solutions and showing solutions via video for urban living in different ways. I'm very sympathetic because I was an urban guy for a long time, and it was a great life. But like now, I wonder if I went back there to the city, how could I live in a better way? And it's tricky. It really is. So I'm sympathetic, and I'm interested in communicating about that as well. On a personal level with you, Shelton, I thank you for hosting this.
No problem. This has been fascinating. I'm always looking for people such as yourself to talk to, and you're a great guest, and you're free to stay and just sort of hang out. I'm going to stop the